Now, I mentioned that Elihu, in his statements, seems to pave the way for the appearance of God. And this is yet another example of it. In Job chapter 37, with vivid, poetic language, Elihu describes the thunder, the lightning, the snow, the rain, and the whirlwind. And he describes these things as being not merely natural occurrences, but pointers to and powerful examples of God's stunning and spine-tingling sovereignty. The whirlwind, spoken of here, is not merely a piece of poetic flair. It becomes the very medium through which God chooses to speak, as though nature itself has been rumbling in anticipation of God's appearance, pointing forward to the glorious moment where God will speak. At this my heart pounds and leaps from its place. Listen to the roar of his voice, to the rumbling that comes from his mouth. Elihu has told us before that this is the God who speaks. And now he says, don't listen to me, don't listen to them, but listen with all your might to him. This is not just meteorology, it's theology. It's the fact that God speaks and his voice is full of power. He accomplishes all that he commands. He speaks and the world snaps into obedience. He speaks and the mountains quake and tremble. The voice of the Lord is full of power. And here, Elihu is inviting us to be awestruck, not at the storm, but at the one who commands the storm through his speech. We serve a God who we cannot control, who we do not domesticate. He is awesomely powerful. Reminds me of that bit in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe where some of the characters are discussing Aslan and they reach the conclusion that Aslan is not safe, but he is good. His power is controlled by his character. And the same is true of our God. If we lose sight of his power and think of him simply as loving and cuddly, we are placing ourselves in immense danger. And Elihu, despite his youth, has rightly understood that point. His reaction to these things is vivid and fierce. His heart trembles and it leaps from its place. From verse 6, Elihu then turns his attention to various aspects of the weather. He says, these things happen as a result of God's command. He says to the snow, fall on the earth, and to the rain, be a mighty downpour. And again, doesn't this remind us of the sovereignty of God? Nothing takes place aside from his knowledge and complete control. We could think of several examples in the Bible where the weather even was precisely what it needed to be for the purposes of God to be accomplished. Think of the flood in Noah's day, not a random act of nature, but a deliberate act of salvation and judgment. Or the parting of the Red Sea, which was preceded, of course, with the wind blowing all night and preparing the path for God's people. Or the drought in the days of Elijah, brought about as judgment upon the adulterous idolaters of Israel. It is not the case that God simply sets the weather in motion and then takes his hand off the controls. He is sovereign over every drop of rain that falls from the sky. Elihu knows it and proclaims it, and we ought to wholeheartedly believe it. Elihu then moves his focus from observations of these phenomena to the question of what is the proper human attitude towards the God who does these things. Firstly, it's got to be great humility, hasn't it? We ought to be small in our own eyes because we are certainly small in his. That doesn't mean that we're not loved, but it does mean that we're not powerful in many of the ways that we think we are. Listen to this, Job. Stop and consider God's wonders. Do you know how God considers the clouds and makes his lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds hang poised, those wonders of him who has perfect knowledge? You who swelter in your clothes when the land lies hushed under the south wind. Can you join him in spreading out the skies hard as a mirror of cast bronze? There is so much we do not know. And so humility, even in the face of our hardships, is the best possible attitude we could adopt. The humility that is required of Job is also required of us. You know, there's a great story in the New Testament where the disciples are experiencing a storm upon the water, and then Jesus stands up on the boat and speaks directly to the storm, "Quiet, be still." And all those who were on the boat, scared out of their skins and terrified for their lives, truly fearing that they were about to die, they continued to be afraid, not of the storm, but of the one who speaks to the storm and commands its every move. After Jesus rebuked the wind and the waves, we read, they were terrified. And they asked together, who is this who even the wind and the waves obey him? Rightly, they are brought low in relation to God. They saw themselves as small and caught a glimpse of his stunning sovereignty. They feared him and had an appropriate awestruck attitude towards him. This is a God with power beyond our wildest dreams. This power ought to cause us to watch with wonder as he accomplishes his will through the work of his hands. It should cause us to be utterly amazed that he would choose to bring us into relationship with him. Listen to the roar of his voice, as Elihu would say, and respond to what he has said with humble, reverent faith.